In this wet shaving artisan spotlight, I spoke to Rod and Mandy of Stirling Soap Company. Now, I want to apologize in advance for the quality of the audio and video. Rod was partially cut off, but I think that the interview was still great. There's still some great content. And if you're already a fan of Stirling, I think you're going to love it. And if you're not a fan of Stirling, I think you're going to love it too. Stay tuned.
Well, thanks everyone for joining us today. We have Rod and Mandy Lovan. Is that how you say your last name? For starters, I want to start out by getting the last name right, I hope.
It's actually Lovan.
Lovan.
Like the emotion. Yeah, most people will call it Lovan, Lovan, anything but saying Lovan. And then when we finally tell them how to correctly pronounce it, they'll inevitably call us McLovin or some,
that's what
Lovin Spoonful or something. Anything you can think of, it's been said.
McLovin was coming right out of the gate.
Yep.
Well, it's a good last name. The first thing I wanted to ask you about is your son. I know you had a son recently, and there were some complications. I know you shared it with the community. How's everything going with your son?
He's amazing. He's humongous and chunky. He's growing really well and progressing really well. So they're not concerned at all. They'll see us again in about next June.
Yeah. So we've spent a lot of time with the cardiologist after we left the NICU, and there's the hole that was originally in his heart has healed out. The infection's completely gone, and he's got he still has the Epstein's anomaly. He's got a valve that's malformed, but it's progressed well enough that he no longer has blood backing up into the other chambers. So cardiologist said he doesn't need to see him again for another year. So we've been really blessed that he's healthy, and you never know anything was wrong now. So it's fantastic.
His name is Lucas, right?
Yes.
How old is Lucas?
It'll be 4 months tomorrow.
4 months. Well, congrats on that. I'm so happy to hear that he's doing better.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I wanted to ask you both, how did you fall into traditional shaving? Was it a hobby for you first, or how did that happen? And who discovered it first, Rod or Mandy?
She bought it for me. I had discovered it while I was in Iraq. It wasn't really so much a hobby, just I thought it was neat, for one, when I saw one of my fellow soldiers shaving that way, but also I used to get just absolute terrible razor burn and really bad razor bumps and ingrown hairs. And the friend had suggested, hey, you should try this, and she bought me a kit, and we've never looked back.
Oh, that's
She's
awesome.
Even a wet shaver now. She's, 7-8 years at least you've been doing it?
It was right after. I started off with just the brush and the soap because we were trying them out and everything, and then eventually I tried the razor, and I still cut myself when I get in a hurry, just like anybody else, and but it's fun for me. It's doing something for myself and everything. It's a much better shave, and I still have a cartridge for those times where I'm a mom of 3, so when I gotta go, and but yeah, Rod had actually, right before he discovered it, he bought about what he thought was 3 years supply of cartridges for his Mach 3, and we still have them all these years later.
Well, that's outstanding. I want to thank you both for your service, by the way. I'm a veteran. I know both of you were veterans, so thanks so much for your service. I guess you met while you were in the military?
Yeah.
She pursued me.
I can see why.
I did. We were in a field environment. He was in charge of this field training site, and
we didn't have an inappropriate relationship.
I was going to say it. Are we going to get into fraternization here?
No. I waited until I went home, but I'd gotten into some minor trouble, while I was there. Wasn't my fault, I swear. But there was a punishment. You had to go up this hill called Bonehead Hill. So he took us up. You go back down and you sign this book. And it had his name in it. So then I stalked him on the Army's email system and looked him up, and we started talking, and
that's. But yes, I was her instructor when we met.
Yeah.
Wow, wait, that's an interesting story. I'm sure people are going to love to hear that. That's a great one. Thanks so much for sharing that. At what point did you decide to get into the business, or what was the very first step? Did you just decide to try to make a soap, or how did that happen?
We initially decided we were going to try to make soap as a hobby, and it's on our website. But it's a true story. We were on top of the William Wallace Monument in Stirling, Scotland, looking down on the city of Stirling. You can see Stirling Bridge. But one thing we noticed, anywhere that there was green, and there's a lot of it in Stirling, they had sheep grazing. We just thought it was neat. It's really sustainable, and at the time we were looking for ways to have a little bit more sustainable lifestyle and things we could do. And so the sheep conversation that we were having on top of the Wallace Monument led to, we could keep the sheep for lawnmowers, but also for meat, for wool, but and then the fat we could use to make soap. And that idea just kind of resonated with both of us. So we thought, well, hey, when we get home, we don't really have anything that we do at night. So instead of sitting on our fat butts and watching TV, let's try making soap and use that as a way to get into that. And now we do have sheep now, and we eat them and we make soap out of their fat. But that's,
and we've not sat down since.
But
it feels like.
But it was intended to initially be a hobby, and then when I decided I'd had enough of being on the other side of the world away from her, and we had our first son, and at that point there was no way I was ever going to go back to Iraq or to Afghanistan, so it was hard enough having to leave her for a year, so I wasn't going to do it with her and a son. So I got out, and we decided we were going to try to do this at that time as a full-time job. And go ahead, sorry.
What were the first products that you made for sale?
Bath soap was actually our only initial product. When we did our big, grand opening, we went up to Canton Trade Days in Canton, Texas, and we took big Rubbermaid containers full of soap, and all bath soap. We had a vegan line and a beef tallow line, and we sold about 6 bars. And we came home early. We got back to the drawing board, and we continued to make bath soap for a while until Rod had gotten a puck. I can't remember. Might have been from Classic Shaving, and he said, "Your sister put, my sister got it for him." He said she paid $20 for this puck. It was one of our standard size, kind of what our refill puck is now.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, "I can do better than this." And so he started researching it and trial and error and sending out freebies and samples of things and getting feedback, and just kind of went from there.
At what point did it begin to take off? When did it catch, or when did you know you might have something?
Well, yeah, to be honest. I mean, there's two things. In 2014, we made your worst soaps list.
That's a great story. So look,
we made your worst soaps list, but I mean, it was for us. We took it as a challenge. We didn't take it as, oh, harumph, we're gonna screw this guy, he doesn't know what the hell he's talking about. What's wrong? And for what we did was we made a huge change in our philosophy. Rather than trying to find a deal anywhere we could on raw materials, essential oils, tallow, whatever it was, we found what we considered to be the best and the most consistent quality raw materials and fragrances and essential oils, and those guys became our suppliers, and for the majority they still are today. So we standardized So while our formula didn't change after our talk with you, the way that we treated ingredients was we didn't look for a bargain. We looked for what was going to be the best way that we could make a quality soap, and that made a huge difference. Just having a more consistent product. I mean, because artisan soap and aftershaves and things like that, there's always going to be idiosyncrasies. I mean, when you're talking about a batch, our batch size is 37 jars. If we do all pour into jars, they're not big batches by any stretch of the imagination. So I mean, anything you can do to make it more consistent helps. So I mean, once that happened, and you gave us a second chance, you bought more of our soap, and at that point liked it. That made a huge difference for us. And then the second tier where we really took off, and we ended up having to hire our first employee, was with the Kong brush, the Poisson killer. You did a video on that, and Shave Busta did a video on it around the same time, and that next day was our highest volume sales day that we had ever had up to that point.
Wow!
And like I said, at that point, it's like, holy cow! We might be able to do this. We'd had some lean times, and we thought we were going to have to scrape by for the rest of our lives to do this. And like I said, that ended up leading us to our first employee.
Well, I'm honored that you would say that. Let me give the other side of the story, because from my side, what happened was there were so many people that were impressed with Stirling, the quality relative to the price especially, and they just kept talking about it. And I was like, let me try this. And so when I got it, it was a very good quality soap, but I got this side odor that was almost like I describe it as like a dirty sock. And so as I tend to do, if I don't like it, I just say it. And I put it on my worst products list at that time, really with no intention of hurting anybody. It was just that I don't like this soap. And then some time passed, and someone told me, I can't remember who, but you should really try this again. And everybody was talking about Sharp Dressed Man. And so I said, I'm gonna order that again. I ordered it, and you reached out to me and said, give me a call. I gave you a call, and you said, hey, when you get that, take the lid off of it for a little bit, let it sort of air out and calm down. And in doing so, it didn't really have nearly as much side odor as it had before. And then I really enjoyed the Sharp Dressed Man, the scent, because it's, Green Irish Tweed type. And I thought, wow, now this is good. And then after that, I started buying them. And I believe you all continued to work on it for a little while. And then at some point, there was just no side odor. It was just a done deal. And from there, it was like, oh, man, now this is one of my favorite products. And it remains so today. I have well over in there, I probably have 25 Stirling soaps. I have 15 or more Stirling aftershaves. Obviously, you're one of my favorite brands. And I've told this story before on the channel. And the reason I tell it is because you could have easily gotten mad as artisans often do when you voice any sort of criticism. And I understand it's hurtful. People criticize me. Sometimes I don't like it, but it comes with the territory. But when I tell the story, I always say they just went back and got to work. They didn't whine. They didn't whine on social media. They didn't say, woe is me, and have a lot of zealots come out and attack me as has happened. Before, it was just like, we got to work on this. And then it just got fixed. And then from there, it was like, wow, this is a great product. It comes at a really, really good price. And that's the next thing that I wanted to ask you. You're often known as a value brand. How do you feel about being considered a value brand?
We're fine with it. I mean, there's times that we would like to have a higher profit margin, and she's usually the one that pushes. When we have a price increase, it's coming from Mandy.
He's blaming me.
She does all our bookkeeping. She takes everything to the accountant for taxes. So it's okay to be known as a value brand, because I feel like for the most part we've shaken the idea that it's a cheap soap or that you're compromising the quality before that. The truth of the matter is, we accept a lower profit margin simply because we price our soaps at what I'm comfortable paying, and I'm not really given to excess. But also, and there's other reasons behind it. $4 an ounce for soap is going to be a lot to ask in a prolonged recession. And I think where we're priced at around $2.25, $2.30 an ounce is a lot more palatable for someone that might be scraping by a little bit, and not wanting to go back to a can of Barbasol. So, but also, I mean, it works as well because a lot of people will recommend us to people who are switching over to wet shaving because we are, more affordable than a lot of other brands. So, in that way, we're hopefully gaining customer loyalty, and I think it works for us.
It does. Just maybe a week or 2 weeks ago, we were involved in this debate, some of us, about quality and the soaps with the high-end ingredients and all. And I said, look, Stirling hits really a perfect spot for me. It's everything I need and then some. And in fact, I used Stirling on a video with a straight razor. I would lather up my face, and then I took it completely off my face and just shaved on the residual slickness for 3 passes, and just going, look, this stuff is as good as anything else. In terms of the mechanics of the shave, you really, in my view, you don't need any more than that. And I went on to say that if you can't get a good shave out of Stirling, you need to learn how to shave better. And some people got upset with that, and I didn't mean it to be insulting. But my point was, it has all the required elements in terms of the mechanics of a shave, slickness, and all these other things that you need. And it makes quite a creamy lather. Go ahead, please.
We thought about, doing a premium line, or like tweaking it and making it a little bit more, bringing in more luxurious, base oils and things like that, and turning out a premium line. And at the end of the day, we look at each other and say, but why are we going to, fix something that isn't broken? We love our soap. We use it daily, and we've used others too, and had great results as well. But as far as our product goes, we don't. I don't see us changing it much anytime soon.
So you don't have any plans for like another level premium offering?
No, I honestly, and I'm not saying anything against artisans that do that, because we all have to do what we do need to be able to exist as a business, especially given how crowded the wet shaving market has gotten. But that's just not something I'm interested in doing, because, I mean, honestly, I feel guilty when we have someone that buys more soap than they can use in years. I really believe it when I say that I want customers that are going to be buying soap and using it, and not having hundreds of soaps sitting in a drawer. Not that I'm going to ever turn away customers, but we're hoping to grow Stirling by growing wet shaving in general, bringing in more people who would normally be using can gel and a cartridge razor, and having them own a 2 or 3 Stirling soaps and aftershaves and a razor and blades and a brush, rather than relying on, while we do have an extensive line, we're not putting out a new base every year. We're not putting out new stuff like that and asking somebody that already has a jar of Executive Man, hey, come back and get another jar of Executive Man now because it's, Executive Man 2.0. It works just fine, and there are people that want that elite tier soap, and that's fantastic. But we're not. I would feel like we're disrespecting the majority of our customer base by putting out a second line and asking them to spend more money when they already have a soap that I think is good.
We have, the 50+ cents. We don't have that so that everybody can collect them all. We have that so that everyone has something. They can always find something that they like, hopefully. We continue to expand the scents and things like that as customer demand comes in. We're fielding emails. Rod does all of our emails pretty much, and he's like, hey, what about this product? What about this scent? We get enough interest for it, and we'll do just about We'll try just about any scent.
Unless it's, we do get requests, hey, can you make us, hey, can you, this company's, X company's soap base, I just don't like it, but I love this scent. Can you make that? That we don't do.
Right.
I don't like to copy other people's. We do cologne dupes and things like that, but I'm not looking to copy another artisan's signature and things like that.
Right. I understand that. Yeah, that's a question that's often asked of me. Has Stirling ever reformulated, or do they reformulate? So let me just ask you, have you ever reformulated from what your base formula was? I'm assuming you've probably tweaked it somewhere along the way, some.
We tweaked it when we spoke to you in 2014, but really it wasn't so much a reformulation. It was just, like I said, we started using consistent ingredients. Our castor oil suppliers are castor oil. Our tallow supplier is this. You're our lye supplier. You're our almond oil supplier. So we don't jump around looking for the best deal on raw materials. So that's been since April 2015 that we've had everything standardized, and we've not made any change to the formula since then.
The only other things that we changed were a little bit with the process, and that was it. And that was more of us learning more about the chemical reactions taking place and what's actually happening while we're making the soap. So adding things in at a different time or in a different way, that's help the product.
But also buying, we've every batch has a thermometer on it multiple times, and we have a very small temperature window when certain ingredients are added now, just to make sure that we're putting out something as consistent as possible.
We used to go up and feel the side of the pot, and I got so good that I could tell you just about what temperature, when it was ready and when it was in that window, but it wasn't until, I won't say a while in, but a couple of years in or so that we really got serious about making sure that it was within this temperature range. And it was just because we had made a few batches and they were inconsistent, and it was like, we're artisans, yes, but the customer still expects a consistent product or mostly consistent,
This question is for Rod. How mad at me was Mandy when you made the worst from products list?
Honestly, both of us were kind of like, whiskey tango foxtrot. What do we need to do? But I mean, honestly, neither of us really got mad. I mean, it was more of a thing of, yeah, this has the potential to hurt our bottom line. So what do we need to do to counteract this? And I mean, she's right when she says we immediately got to work and figured out, where are the seeds? What do we need to patch up here, and what do we need to outright change? And it was almost immediate that we took it to heart and decided that we needed to do better if we were going to survive, and we wanted to. Because I mean, this is something that we wanted at that time. By 2014, when we made your list, we knew that this is what we wanted to do moving forward. Neither one of us ever. I wasn't obviously going back to the Army, and neither one of us wanted to go back to working for anyone else. So,
and we had just moved to Arkansas in the Boonville, and so, if we weren't going to do the soap company, we were going to have to move again because there's not really industry here. When we moved to town, everybody said, well, where are you working? What are you going to do? And it was like, well, we brought our company with us because we can do it anywhere. We're e-commerce. So
I'm so glad that you all have told the entire story here. So, because I've told it so many times, just me, and it's so nice to have you all share what happened in your side of the story. And I couldn't be happier about it because it really is a story of redemption. And then somebody just doing, I mean, I couldn't have possibly imagined what a staple your company would have become just a few years later. Like, it's just everybody. There's very few people who will say bad things about Stirling. People might say, it's not premium, it doesn't have a high price tag, but almost no one will say it isn't very good quality. And so I'm really happy about that. I got another question for you, though. The samples that you have, they're the best in the business. Your soap samples, that big round cut, they're phenomenal. Who came up with the idea to do samples the way you do, which is better than everybody else in the business, in my opinion, by a lot?
I don't know, we had end cuts and things, and so we just started giving them away as samples to, they're getting, when we first started out, we started sending out samples for feedback. And so we just kind of kept that along. Somebody would try out our samples of, soap A, and so we'd send them soap B as well. Just say, here, try this out. And so that kind of caught on, and eventually, sometime when we were down in Texas still, we said, why don't we sell the samples? And so I would spend some days, we made them all into refill pucks initially. And I don't know why we didn't cut more samples back then, but I would spend a good portion of my day cutting refill pucks into samples. And that was such a time waster.
They're amazing because people use them and they get nearly the full experience of a full tub of soap because they're this big around and they will go down in a bowl. And people are getting between 15 and I've heard upwards of 40 shaves out of a sample. So they get a chance to really experience a soap for, what are they, $3.50 or something like that.
When you factor in labor, we really don't make anything on the samples, but to us, it's worth it to allow people to try things out prior to putting out a tub. And it does pay for the labor. It's that part's covered. It's not like we're losing money on them. We've got employees now, and when we have a girl that she goes through and she cuts every sample with a cheese cutter. So it works for us. We've resisted over the years. We've had a lot of people ask us, hey, I really don't need a sample this big. I like it, but, have you ever thought of doing like, what other companies do and buy the little 1/4 ounce jars and just throw your samples in there? And that would be much easier and be a lot more profitable for us. But we've seen so many complaints online of people, or just not even complaints, questions. I got my samples in. What the hell do I do with this?
Right.
How do you run it? So you got to dig your finger in there, and like people don't want to mess with that, so they just throw it in the trash. And so her sample sizes actually used to be 1/3 of our refill pucks, and that was another thing I had to get Rod on board with, and we ended up polling the customers and saying, would you rather have 1/3 or 1/4 of a refill puck? And just about unanimously, everybody said 1/3 of a puck is too much. Go with 1/4, and so we've been with 1/4 ever since.
They are fantastic. I'm just telling you that they really give you a good representation of your soap, and people love them. They get a lot of use out of them. You guys have a dizzying array of options, like for every product. You sell just the containers. You used to sell the stickers. I don't know if you still do. You sell refill pucks. You sell sample pucks. You sell balms, bath soaps, lip balms. I'm sure you can go on. I don't know if there's anybody that has so many options, nearly for every single scent that you have, which is just, it's insane. How do you keep up with that? It's incredible.
A lot of employees.
We've brought on employees, but we run a really lean operation. We don't, that's part of being in Arkansas. We don't have a lot of overhead here. It's, economically depressed area. So it's dirt cheap to do business. But we've also, it's what we have to do to survive. Because, wet shaving is there's, I'd venture that the majority of wet shaving companies, the majority of wet shaving companies are run by hobbyists. So, that may have another job. So while they may be putting out shave soap, aftershave, maybe a balm or some other product, they don't need to be bringing in as much revenue as we do because they have another, they've got something else to fall back on. So, for guys like us, for guys like, Will at Barrister Man or Chris at Katie's Bubbles, who we're doing this full time, we've got to find a way to bring in enough people to our website to make a living off of this. And we don't charge enough for our shave soap and aftershave and post-shave balm that if that were the only products we had, we could do this for a living. So we had to have ancillary products, just a way to get people to add a few more things to their cart, so that this entire business model works. Because it doesn't if we're only selling shaving products.
What's your best selling product of all time? Like if by scent, let's say.
Executive Man,
Oh, really?
by far.
I'm not surprised by that. That's a really good one.
Yeah, I wish it was one of my originals, but that's why we do the cologne dupes. I mean, I'm more proud of the original scents that I've created and that Mandy has created than any of our cologne dupes. But the truth of the matter is, the cologne dupes sell well, so it's kind of a socialist system where the cologne dupes subsidize the slower selling products, just so that we can continue to make them.
People want, the products, or the men seem to want the products that pair well with their cologne. So our original creations and things like that, while we've put things like Gatlinburg and Stirling Gentleman into EDT form, that's not typically something that our customers, that they would use. They, and a lot of the men in this hobby, they enjoy the luxury items, so they're purchasing high-end colognes like Creed Aventus and Tom Ford and things like that. So that's why we do the dupes.
Do you find that some of your labels, like the graphic labels, like Mountain Man or Electric Sheep, or the containers that have graphic labels, do you notice any difference in sales? Like, do those attract more people, or is there basically no difference?
No,
There's really not a discernible difference. I mean, we've had people that have reached out and said, "Hey, I don't like the labels. You should do all the same, standard Stirling labels." And we have had some that have reached out and said, "Hey, I picked this scent just because of the label, and I'm glad I did. I love it." So
we've also had people that have said that they don't like the standard label, that it looks too vanilla, even though we try to change it up with the colors and things like that. But we have it go both ways. So we have this blend. We like the custom labels, but yeah, we've had people complain that they look too cartoonish, not serious branding, kind of thing.
So can you tell me? Yeah, I like them too, for what it's worth, whether they be the graphic ones or the regular ones. I just think it says Stirling, the iconic green tub. You know what you have immediately, and I like that. I wanted to ask you about your stainless steel razor. Is there still plans to bring that to market? And if you wanted to discuss what happened with that a little bit, now's the time.
It should have been ready last year. The product's been delayed multiple times. The company that we contracted to make them, and this is my fault. This is my own naivety and ignorance. But the company that we contracted to make them subcontracted it out to a Chinese company so that they'd be a little more profitable on it. But they failed to disclose that to us. But they also had the products marked or etched "Made in the USA." Which I can't remember the name of the act, but it's a violation of federal and state law to conceal the origin of a product. So we couldn't sell them. So it just luckily we were able to get that. After a few months of back and forth with the company, we were able to get it resolved. So it didn't really cost us anything but time. And now we're working with a company in Wisconsin. I was actually on a Skype call with them earlier today. The heads are at the polishing department right now, and I'm hoping next week to have my first samples in hand of their work so that I can okay the polish level going forward on the remainder of them. But they are still they've been delayed again because of COVID mania, but the shop had to go down to minimum manning, which slowed everything down. But as long as they're still moving forward, we should have them out long before the end of the year. And what we may do is we may just hold on to them until a little bit closer to the Christmas season, so that they'll be available for people that want to buy them as gifts.
I think Stirling, in my view, and you could certainly speak to this better than I, but I think you have a pretty loyal base of people who buy from you or who really evangelize for the brand. What do you think it is that creates people who are so loyal to Stirling?
Customer service. I mean, the quality product, of course, and at the price point, but the customer service. I mean, anybody who calls our 1-800 number, they get Rod. They don't get customer service, and he takes care of everybody. So no matter the no matter the situation or the question or anything like that, there's a lot of days he comes home and says he didn't get a darn thing done because the phone just kept on ringing, but he answers it. So
unless I'm actively making soap or doing something else, painting on the coffee shop or something like that, and then I'll let it go to voicemail and try to call them back. But I mean that I think that is, it's just we try to be an exemplary company. I don't think we gouge people on our prices. I think we provide a quality product. I instill in our employees that they need to understand and be grateful to every customer that spends money with us, because that's the reason they have a job. I mean, because you can attest to this, there are hundreds of options for wet shaving out there. So for every customer that does spend money with us, we need to be grateful, and we need to make them understand that, thank you. We are grateful that you chose to spend your money with us. And like I said, when there's an issue, we do our best to fix it. And there's times that not everyone's going to be satisfied. I mean, that's the part of life, and you have to learn to accept that. But we still do our best, and that's actually something. I always thought we had good customer service, but we've tried over the past few years to even kick it up a notch. During an AMA on Reddit, I'd asked Scott at Declaration Grooming a question about handling customer service. What do you do? Because inevitably you're going to have people that they're going to call in or they're going to email you, and they're going to be furious from the get-go, and they're not going to be cordial. I mean, the truth of the matter is, some people are just jerks. And you're going to run into them every day. And I said, what advice do you have for stuff like that? And his response was, I try to shock people with the level of customer service. I want them to put down the phone or walk away from the email saying, wow, that's how it should be handled. So that's a tack that we've tried to take. And like I said, it's not always going to be successful, because sometimes people are just going to ask too much, and they're going to be just absolutely without reason in something. But we do what we can to, like I said, to make our customers feel like we actually do care, because we do. We 100% are blown away by the amount of customers that we have, but also the support and the loyalty that they do show us, because it's far outstripped anything that we ever thought it could have been when back in January 2012 when we got our LLC. It's I don't know, it's humbling. It's humbling, very much so.
What's your favorite scent of the products that you make? What's the one that you like to use the most? Each of them.
I know yours.
Yeah, she knows mine.
It's difficult. You got a lot.
It's hard. A lot of it depends on the season. Like every time the season comes around and we start making those seasonal products that I haven't smelled in months, it's like, spring's here, summer's here. For me, Weekend in Malibu. That it went away for a couple of years because we couldn't source the fragrance, and we were going to hand it over to another company to reverse engineer it, because the company that we originally got it from had they had a factory upset, and so they weren't able to make it. And this year we brought it back, and it was like, oh, finally, so that one's been my favorite.
She has to rotate things though. She likes variety. I mean, we've got Soap Commander, we've got Katie's Bubbles, we've got a handful of other artisans, and then we've got probably 20 jars of our own soap in the bathroom, and she goes through every one of them.
Thank you. thank you, by the way, for making Piacenza, because it's one of my favorite scents. And Glenn Helly, who also makes videos, I said, you know why they made Piacenzas? Because I sent Rod samples like, you got to make this.
I saw his video.
That's a great one. Like it's a really good representation of Acqua di Parma Colonia. I think it's fantastic. It's one of my favorites. So we really thank you for making that one.
For me, my favorite's boat drinks.
Boat drinks. I haven't tried that one yet because it was sold out. And when is it going to come back, or is it going to come back
after COVID-19 goes away?
Oh, okay.
It's a full-on original fragrance, like using individual aroma chemicals as well as some accords. It's my own. Like I said, it's my own creation, so I'm extremely proud of it for one. But also, we made it. We were working on it all this winter. This winter in Arkansas was just miserable. We were 20 inches above our rain. We couldn't go outside because our yard was always flooded. We were right at that temperature in the 40s where it just sucks. It's not frozen, so you can enjoy snow, but it's not warm enough to really do anything. And I was going stir crazy. So I wanted to work on a tropical scent because that's where I wanted to be. I wanted to be in the Caribbean.
We just gotten back from the Caymans, actually.
Yeah. And we and I when I hit that and got it right, it was like, what are we going to call this? And it just instantly clicked. Jimmy Buffett's boat drinks, because I shot 6 holes in my freezer. That's where I was heading by the end of this winter. So I've got the last bottle of aftershave and the last jar of shave soap, and I've got a 5 ml of the EDT and a post-shave balm. And if COVID-19 doesn't open up shipping markets again so that I can make that fragrance, I don't know what I'm going to do.
It's going to be a really long winter.
Let me ask you about your coffee roasting, because we haven't talked about that at all, and I'd be remiss if I didn't ask. What are you doing with the coffee roasting? Talk about.
We're renovating the building right now.
Okay.
So that's where we're at. We're hopefully about 3 weeks away from beginning the roasting. We've got the roaster. It's sitting in one of our buildings right now on pallets still, and we can't wait to get it off of those pallets. They actually build the pallet around it. It's so heavy. I have no idea how we're going to get it off the pallet. But we'll figure it out. But that's where we're at. We just approved artwork for the bags today, and so those will be in production. And we got to build a website.
We should have coffee available for sale around Labor Day, though. But the weeks leading up to that, we'll just be sending out a lot of free samples to people, because neither of us have ever roasted on a machine this size. It's a 20 kilogram machine, so it's bigger than either of us have ever used. So the first few dozen roasts are just going to be stuff that we'll send out for free. But we should have been done already, but the world continues to fall apart this year. Yeah. But also the buildings that we bought were in far worse shape than we initially anticipated, which we should have known. It was 10,000 square feet for $50,000. It's obviously it was a dump. So, but I mean, they're all three are on the National Historic Register. They're beautiful old buildings, and when they're fully restored, they're going to be beautiful. And it's a part of a rural, economically depressed downtown area that could use a facelift, and we're glad to be doing it, because once it's done, it's going to be something that was just a few years from probably falling in on itself, and now it's going to be a centerpiece, and it'll actually be hopefully creating jobs and economic development and spurring other things for Stirling Soap as well. So I'm as excited as I've been in a long time to be doing this.
I saw maybe a couple of months ago rumors floating around about a vegan Stirling Soap. Was that just absolute rumors and malarkey, or was there any substance to that?
Well, we had a little bit of trouble when they started shutting down the meat processing plants. we thought we were going to have trouble sourcing our beef tallow, which of course is the base for both the bath and the shave soap. So that would be a big hit to us. So we had thrown around the idea that if it came to it, that we would, for the sake of our company and our employees and everything, that we would move to vegan, not because we're anti-animal or anything like that, moving that way, but just to meet the needs of our company and everything, just to get us by until we could source that beef fat again. Thankfully, that wasn't the case, and we were able to source it. And
we came right down to the wire, though. We had 1 week left when my tallow supplier emailed me and said, "Hey, I've got another pallet. You still need it?" And yes, please get it down here. So, hopefully, hopefully this whole thing subsides quicker than we expect, and a lot of the processing plants open back up, and it's not an issue. But for now, for at least the next couple of months, we're good.
What does the future hold for Stirling? Are you working on anything else that you're excited about, or want to talk about, or just anything at all you'd like to share?
The razors and the coffee are the next two things. I mean, we've been kicking around for 2 years. I mean, we've got the equipment, we've got the raw materials, we've kicked around candles. We just haven't found the right time to do the candles. We've kicked around selling, essential oils, doTERRA style stuff for, diffusers. We just haven't. Every time we get close on things like that, we find something else that we think is a better avenue to take, like the coffee right now. I fully hope that Stirling continues to grow and we can continue to expand. Because this is what we want to do for the rest of our lives, and I'm hoping I can build something worth passing on to my sons, that when the time comes for me to step down, that they can continue to run it.
Now, you mentioned candles, and there's a gentleman, Shave 326, he actually started a tag series of videos with what he called mandals. Not candles, but mandals. So if Stirling ever produces a mandal, I'm sure Ken Klitschko, Shave 326, will really appreciate it, because they tagged me, and I said, I don't own any candles. Like, I'm a man. And he was like, oh, you're not so tough, And so I borrowed one of my wife's candles when she was out of town. I'm like, if she gets home and sees this candle's been burning, she's going to wonder what's been going on in this house, because I don't burn candles, I'm going to get a divorce, So if Stirling starts producing mandals, that will be a very interesting move. Anything else you're excited about? I know I saw, I think, a drop yesterday of dot bags, maybe, or dot kit.
Dot kits, yeah. That was something that we thought about back in 2015, and we thought about, sourcing it out to China. We got a couple of sample bags, and it was just like, these look cheap. They look like nobody's going to pay for this. It's only going to cheapen our brand and make us look like that's our, that's where we're shooting. And so I got some fabric from Walmart and pushed it out on my sewing machine to see if time-wise, if we could even make this profitable for us. And it was. So we got a better machine, and we got better fabric and leather. And so we started pushing it out and trying different sizes and different sewing techniques. We ended up having to upgrade the machine even further because of the leather and just the heft of the bag to a professional sewing machine. And then it was simply a matter of time. A lot of it has been time. I was making all of my products up until the end of, it was August of 2018. It was right when our second son was born, and I finally had to step back. So we weren't able to pick it up again until here recently, when we found one of our employees was a bit of a seamstress, and so she took the project on and really made it, and we tweaked the design together and made this product. And so we finally.
Did you design it and make it in-house?
Yes, everything is
That's
made
awesome.
and designed in-house, 100%.
Wow. So didn't send the design off to have it made somewhere else.
No, we even, all of the materials are actually sourced in the United States. Even the zippers. There's a company up in New York City that's like the oldest zipper company in the U.S. And we bought, I don't know how many hundreds of zippers years ago, and they sent them to us, and so we're finally putting them to use. We're really, really glad because this fabric is fantastic. The leather is amazing, and we bought an iron brand to stamp it in there, heat stamp brand, and they're beautiful. They're hefty. They're definitely sturdy, and we're proud to finally sell them.
Wow, that's pretty remarkable because people don't make things like that themselves much anymore. Everybody outsources everything, and so that's pretty amazing. I did look at them yesterday, so I was like, "What has Stirling got going on here?" And I was like, "Oh, that looks pretty good." Looks like leather on the ends, and it's got your stamp in it, and it looked like it was heavy duty just from the looking at the website.
Yeah, it's a really, I've got them here. I've been working from home, so I took all the pictures here and everything, so I've got all of them. The Gore-Tex one, the multicam one, is actually it's exactly what they use for the Army's Gore-Tex jackets. We contacted the company that sources them and got a whole roll of it. I don't know how many thousands of bags we'll probably be able to make off of it, but because we had to buy quite a bit. But hopefully the Army doesn't move away from multicam anytime soon. And but it's a really neat pattern. The Army, soldiers, Rod included, love having a really nice DOP kit to take their stuff in when they're deployed and going out on field exercises and things like that. So that was kind of for our military. And
so what's the final message you would like to convey to the viewers, your customers, potential customers?
Just thank you.
You can't do it any better than that.
It's, I don't know, like I said, I know I harped on this earlier, but we live a very good life. Mandy and I we're happy. Our three boys are healthy. The business is doing extremely well.
We've got a great crew.
We've got a fantastic crew of employees, and they take care of us as well as we take care of them. And it's not possible without the customers. I mean, so if there's ever a time that anyone feels that we haven't treated them right, please let us know and we'll rectify it. And thank you for doing business with us.
Oh, it's been my pleasure. I want to thank both of you for your time and your commitment to the hobby, and just the way you do business has always been very attractive to me, especially given the rocky start. And like, it was something that I strongly disliked and went to something that I really love. And it's obviously you're one of my favorite brands and some of my favorite people, and I always tell people they just do it the right way. They just get to work. They're just sort of in the old-fashioned way of just getting busy, getting to work, not doing a lot of whining, crying. I mean, all of us had to grow up a little bit along the way. We've been into scuffles with people early on, but you learn over time, and I think your company has been one of those that they just put out products that everybody seems to enjoy, and so I can't thank you enough for your time and all the things that you've done.
Thank you, Chris. I appreciate it.